Hey nerds, I'm Maple, your host, and a paleontology enthusiast who definitely once thought Jurassic Park was a documentary. Welcome to the DevDiv podcast, where we learn why you're alive and why it's mostly because something else died horribly. If you like dinosaurs, mammals, and, existential dread, you are in the right tar pit.
Today, we're stealing from Steve Brusatte. He's the University of Edinburgh guy who wrote The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs and its incredible sequel about mammals. And his whole thesis starts where most histories really don't, with the Permian mass extinction, 252 million years ago. You know, the one that killed 90% of absolutely everything and made Earth look like a badly managed barbecue. Most people start the dinosaur story at T-Rex. Brusatte starts at the apocalypse that made dinosaurs possible in the first place, which is honestly very on brand for 2026. All right, let's get into it.
Part 1. The Permian Barbecue.
So the Permian extinction hits. Volcanoes erupt, oxygen drops, pretty much everything dies. But then, in the total silence of that devastated world, something weird happens in what's now Poland. We find these tantalizing little clues, footprints smaller than a house cat, and those belong to the very first proto-dinosaurs. Brusatte traces the entire dinosaur family tree back to those humble little cat-sized footprints right after the worst mass extinction in Earth's history, and explains how they eventually led to the first true dinosaurs about 230 million years ago.
Moving on to Part 2, Interns of the Triassic.
The thing is, early dinosaurs were not very successful right out of the gate. They spent millions of years as background characters. They were basically the B-list actors, the unpaid interns of the Triassic period. Big, ugly pseudosuchians totally ran the place, plus these giant amphibians that looked like someone left a salamander in the dryer way too long. Seriously, we're talking about car-sized salamanders, and an absolute menagerie of armored crocodiles with thousands of teeth. They were the A-list mob bosses, and they forced our tiny dinosaur interns to scurry around in the shadows for tens of millions of years.
So you've got to wonder, how do these marginalized interns finally get a promotion to the top of the food chain? Well, Earth loves a sequel.
Which brings us to Part 3, the Jurassic promotion. The Triassic ends with another massive mass extinction. Lava pours out, global temperatures spike, and it wipes out most of that terrifying competition. The giant salamanders and crocs, decimated. But the dinosaurs, they somehow miraculously sail right on through and they finally get the promotion. They become the dominant animals at the beginning of the Jurassic. As the supercontinent fractured and split apart, dinosaurs adapted and expanded. Suddenly, it's just long necks and giant teeth everywhere you look. We're talking meat eaters the size of city buses and long-necked plant eaters heavier than Boeing 737s. They totally conquered the surface.
And that leads into Part 4, Mice in the Walls.
Meanwhile, shortly after dinosaurs got their start during the Triassic, these little furry mammals began scurrying underfoot, using their powerful teeth to chomp down on plants, insects, and eventually even tiny dinosaurs. And that's us. We were essentially the mice in the walls of a giant dinosaur mansion for 150 million years. Mammals had to live completely incognito, coming out at night, living underground, evolving better ears and better teeth, just trying our absolute hardest not to get squashed by a passing brontosaurus.
It was this crazy, incredible equilibrium. Dinosaurs kept mammals small, like no mammal was bigger than a badger for 150 million years. But at the same time, mammals kept the dinosaurs big. You literally never saw a T-Rex the size of a mouse, because the mammals already owned all that tiny ecological real estate. And by being forced to miniaturize and hide in the underworld, our ancestors evolved larger brains, complex inner ear bones for amazing hearing, and incredibly specialized molar teeth to process all the newly evolving flowering plants and the insects buzzing around them.
All right, quick fossil break. If you like me explaining 250 million years in 10 minutes while mispronouncing the word synapsid, please subscribe. Leave a 5-star review, or honestly, a 1-star review that says she thinks Dimetrodon is a dinosaur, which I totally do not anymore, for the record. And share this with your friend who still thinks humans lived with T-Rex just because they watched the Flintstones.
Okay, Part 5, the asteroid eviction.
Because, as we know, nothing lasts forever. 66 million years ago, an asteroid drops down from space and does exactly what the volcanoes couldn't do. It kills the landlords. A rock 6 miles wide slammed into the Earth, detonating with the energy of 1 billion nuclear bombs, instantly throwing the dinosaurs' cozy greenhouse world into absolute turmoil.
It was a total nightmare. Tsunamis, earthquakes, spontaneous global wildfires. But the soot and the dust were the real killers. They cloaked the Earth in darkness, plunging the planet into a nuclear winter. Without sunlight, the whole ecosystem just collapsed like a house of cards. T-Rex, Triceratops, and pretty much every single animal larger than a husky dog died out. All the dinosaurs died except for one weird plucky group who were just like, nah, we have feathers, we're good. The birds.
So the giant dinosaurs were completely evicted from the planet. But the heirs? The mammals. Brusatte's second book picks up right in the ashes of the extinction event that doomed T-Rex, and he argues that mammals inheriting the Earth is a story every bit as wild as the dinosaur story. We survived because we were small, warm, and paranoid enough to hide away in burrows and eat seeds while the surface world literally burned and froze.
Finally, Part 6. Survival of the Least Unlucky.
With the dinosaur overlords permanently out of the picture, mammal evolution goes into absolute overdrive. They exploded from the size of rats to the size of pigs and cows in a total evolutionary blink. And the ultimate moral of this cold case? Evolution is not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the least unlucky. The dinosaurs were incredibly fit, but they couldn't survive a 6-mile-wide rock from space. The meek don't inherit the Earth. The meek who know how to hide inherit the Earth.
So yeah, dinosaurs came from dust, mammals came from shadows, and you came from a rat that outlived a comet. Big thanks to my producer FireflyHaku, who is still convinced he is a car-sized salamander from the Triassic who got reincarnated as a sound engineer, and honestly, his work ethic checks out. I'm Maple. Remember, you are 252 million years of bad luck that worked out. But it does kind of make you wonder, if we're just the current landlords, what cosmic lottery is waiting to evict us next? And what tiny creatures are hiding in our walls, waiting to take over? See you next time!